We had come from Salonika on leave. After 2 years, over the land through Greece, then crossing from Ityr to Italy through France, the scenery was very interesting and so refreshing after the sun-scorched land of Salonika. At Le Havre, we boarded the Warildra, an Australian boat which was to take us to Southampton. When we arrived on board, we found out that 2 VADs were making their way home from France, and Mrs. Long, commander of the WAACs, and her orderly. We consisted of 2 sisters, the TFNS, and myself, making a number of 7 altogether. After dinner we went to see the wounded officers and men to help them talk. An interesting time we had. The thrilling adventures, which made us glow with admiration and filled us with a longing to do more for these men who willingly gave their lives for us. How time flies. We helped them fix their life belts until the signal for lights out, which made us seek our cabin. Up till now we had moved very slowly because of it being light. Now we were going at good speed, although cautiously, and we were retired with glorious thoughts of tomorrow when we could see England again. We were awakened by 2 terrible crashes, and we felt the ship vibrating violently. The sound of running feet, and someone opened our cabin door and said, "To your boat at once, sisters, we've been torpedoed." We were so sure that nothing would happen that we'd put on our night attire. Now there was no time for dressing. Only our life belts fixed on, and we made our way to our boat, which had been pointed out to us the previous evening. It was so dark that we could not see. Only felt some hands passing us along, while the wounded men who could help themselves lined readily to get to their boats. The stretcher cases were in the hands of the medical officers, and the orderlies under their supervision did splendid work. Everyone gave us a cheery word as we passed. Even in this critical moment they never forgot. There was no panic, everyone remained cool and helped us by being alert. There only being 7 women, we did not delay the rescue work which went on around us as we got into our boat. But I soon lost sight of my friends as the boat became full of wounded men. I'd slipped down into the bottom of the boat to make more room, but unfortunately it being dark I was not seen and several men walked over me. Not anyone's fault, but we were overcrowded. The boat was then lowered, and we should have been struck away, but no hatchet was available, and to our dismay the plugs had been forgotten, and we were taking water quickly. Being at the bottom of the boat and not being able to move, I had a very unpleasant experience. But I must have lost consciousness for a time. For the next thing I remember was feeling myself choking with the salt water and struggling. I knew there was no chance of being saved, for all the boats would be filled with wounded and other survivors, so I resigned myself, hoping it would not be long. I felt myself coming to the top, yet being drawn towards something which I found out to be a small boat upside down. The waves were very strong and dashed me against the side unmercifully. This, with the terrible cries of the men and women in the water, was horrifying. Then I sank once more, not to a great depth, but far enough to become exhausted with the choking of the salt water and the continuous struggle. A ghastly scene was ever before me, with persons floating about, and if you came too near they would clutch at you for help. This as well helped to rob you of your strength. Once more I came to the top and received the same treatment as before. How I longed to die and escape those terrible cries. As I went down again, I was sure that it would be the last time, as my strength was nearly gone and everything was so hazy. Yet again I came to the top, and soon I realised that I was a long way off from the boat, which I could faintly see as I floated towards her. But to my horror I saw another small boat making its way towards me, and remembering my previous treatment I was terrified and put out my hand to ward it off. I did not realise that the boat was the right way up and there might have been a chance of being saved. There was somebody in the boat that saw me, and they caught hold of my hand and tried to pull me in, for I could not do much, and to make matters worse somebody caught hold of my foot. It seemed impossible to me, but my rescuer spoke carefully to me, and after a short time my foot was released and I was lifted into the boat. They looked but could find no trace of any other victim. When they discovered that I was a woman by my attire, they hunted among the other survivors for some extra clothing, but everyone was so scantily clothed, so we made the best of it. Beside myself there was a VAD and a WAAC, about 10 wounded men and 2 sailors in charge of the boat. The other women we thought were drowned, but we heard later that they were picked up in another smaller boat. As we put off, several cries followed us, and our sailors did much rescue work. They never ignored a cry for help, and if the waves took them away again, the rescuers always gave them a cheery word. It took much time and hard work to get the boat away from the suction. Many of the wounded offered to help them, but they always refused with a smile and said they were doing fine. We had been in the boat some time, and when the oarsmen recognised a cry for help, they made towards the sound, and after many difficulties rescued one of their officers, and you could tell he was a favourite. After a short recovery, he took another oar, and we began to feel less doubtful. Several depth charges were sent off, which made us feel very uncomfortable. We had a lantern and some matches, but we dare not show it because of the submarine. This meant although we had sighted several destroyers, we had lost them, owing not to being able to show a light. We had been in the boat about 2 hours. The waves were so strong that at times it seemed we should be capsized, and we were all feeling very depressed, and there was no sign of being rescued. When one boy in the boat tried to cheer us by singing, he did not fail entirely. Soon we were all joining in. We stopped as suddenly as we had started, for someone had sighted a destroyer. Our only chance was to show a light in hope that we could be seen. The light was shone, and we discovered that she was making straight for us, and if something wonderful did not happen, we should be cut into, for we could not escape her. We knew what our fate would be, so we waited, and to our great joy she turned just in time, and the oarsman heard a voice calling to us to catch the rope. Unfortunately we missed it, owing to the dashing of the waves. Then we made off for the starboard side, and very soon our boat was tied. The destroyer was informed that there were women on board, and we were given the first chance, although we would have liked to have taken our turn. The waves were so strong that they lifted our small boat up, level with the destroyer, and we were helped over, and each one had to wait till the waves gave him the chance of boarding. We were served with cocoa and brandy to revive us. Then we were taken to the captain's cabin, where we found a Tommy with a fractured femur, already reposing on the bed with a number of orderlies who told us the news. Every article of clothing that could be collected was given to us, although some of the Tommies had very little. Some only possessed the blanket that was given them when they boarded the destroyer. We were pleased to hear that the destroyers came almost immediately the signal for help was given, and within half an hour 600 cases were saved. A sad fate awaited the boys on the lower deck, as the torpedoes, for we were struck twice, had blown away the gangways so that no help could reach them. Ladders could not reach down, and every effort failed. A number of engineers volunteered to stay behind, although they knew that it meant death. About 100 were lost. These men who were trapped were convalescent, and although eye cases and were able to help themselves, the water rushed in and they were drowned. We were warned that a number of depth charges were to be sounded. The shock was severe, but we consoled ourselves thinking that we had sunk the Hun. We stopped again to take on board some more survivors, and to our delight we found our friends and listened to their terrible experiences. We were sorry to hear that our friend Mrs. Long had been drowned trying to jump from the Warrilder into the small boat and falling between. She became entangled in the ropes. Every effort was made to release her, but when the ropes, she must have collapsed and was drawn under by the suction. The Warrilder remained afloat for about 2 hours, and 2 destroyers tried to tow her along, but eventually she exploded and took the destroyers with her. We did not hear of the captain's rescue till several days afterwards, but as far as we knew, all the engineers went down. The cabin became very hot as there were so many of us in it, and the sailors were exceedingly attentive to all our wants. Every wish of the Tommy was gratified as far as possible. We were glad when the portholes could be opened, and the first glimpse of land was such a joy. Southampton was reached at 8:30 a.m. and we received a warm welcome from soldiers who were waiting to embark and partly understood what had occurred by our attire. to Netley Hospital, where we were taken and received every attention. After a medical examination, we were given permission to travel. Here arose a difficulty which had to be faced. We had lost everything we possessed. The sisters understood, and we were soon dressed for travelling. Although much bruised and stiff, we enjoyed our short leave, and now the past is being forgotten and we start again. Yours obediently, D.E. Dobbs.